Okay, Paul, so far we've built a brilliant website and we've changed a lot of what we're doing and we're talking more to new people and also to our existing customers. But more talking about how we get new people, because I know lots of people might have an effective website. How do we get people onto our website? What do we do there?
Well, I mean, in the book we talk about 20 different strategies, but my personal favourite is the search one. Because there's huge volumes of searches on, even if you just focus on Google alone, huge volumes of searches. And for accountants, most of the people we speak to are very surprised by the actual figures. I pulled some off the other day, so I've got them to talk to you about. But basically, search marketing is getting your website found in Google. And it's, it can be up at the top in the organic results. So when somebody types in accountant in a particular area, you need to be coming up top. Your website that obviously differentiates you. There's paid advertisements. There's lots of different ways, but definitely getting up there in what we call organic listings, which is in the top 10 in Google. That's really where you need to be.
So to get me from a kind of non-technical perspective, we're saying that we're going onto Google and we're typing in accountants in a certain town, and we're appearing at the top. The theory sounds great, but you touched on something there about the number of people searching. Because sometimes I find it hard to believe that there'll be a lot of people searching for an accountant because it's quite a considered purchase. And a lot of accountants get the word of mouth type referrals. So how many people are looking for an accountant and how reliable is that?
I mean, traditionally word of mouth is obviously the way, but I mean, these sort of figures I pulled off just the other day. I mean, accounting, there's over 1 million searches made every month. That's in the UK alone, so google.co.uk. For accountancy, the actual term accountancy, 368,000 every month. Accountants, 673,000. So people are looking for these a lot. Accounting firms, 54,000 searches every month. Accountancy services, 18,000. There's quite a few more. Chartered accountants, 74,000 searches every single month. Payroll services, 18,000 every month. Limited company accountants, 4,500 a month. Corporation tax return, we've got 4,400 searches every month. And then if we go into areas a little bit more, just looked at 2 areas, obviously Newcastle being local, nearly 4,000 searches. And I know from the accountants we've worked with, accountants of varying different size practices in the Newcastle area, there's only about 150. And there's 4,000 people searching every single month for those 150. And then if we look at London, obviously much larger, 23,000 searches for accountants in London every month. Obviously there's a lot more accountants down there. But yes, I mean, it just proves that people are looking for it on a regular basis.
And when you read off those numbers, particularly as we say local towards Newcastle, there's nearly 4,000. What does that mean in terms of 4,000 people looking for an accountant, or how does that work? Where do we come to the number of 4,000?
Well, the data comes from Google. So Google are telling us, that they're keeping a track of exactly what search terms people are typing in, and they'll keep a track of everything from a single word right up to a sentence almost. And they'll give us an average of how many times it's typed in. So that's where the data came from. It's a Google keyword tool, if you like, that allows us to see exactly how many searches are going on a monthly basis.
Okay, so Google's aim is 4,000 people searching in an area like Newcastle. And they'll all want an accountant in Newcastle. But you mentioned something there which to me seemed brilliant. It was accountancy services and payroll services. And there was tens of thousands of those. But that's across the UK. Would that be useful to an accountant in Newcastle or in Birmingham or in another area? What would they do? Because that could be somebody in Devon, couldn't it? And you're in Newcastle.
That's right.
So what is that? Do you only search on the local ones, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, people search in different ways. So you will get people in Newcastle, businesses in Newcastle who don't realise they can add Newcastle to the search term and narrow it down a little bit. So you certainly will find people in there, but the competition is going to be much higher for those higher search terms, of course. And the larger practices can certainly take advantage of those, the practices that can deal across the UK. and should be taking advantage of those huge figures. I mean, accountants, 673,000 searches every single month. The larger practices should be taking advantage of that. For a small local practice, we would always start with the regional keywords. Yeah, we'd always look at that. And if you really want to narrow those, you want to go after the large keywords, but you want to narrow down your area, you can always choose the pay-per-click, which is Google's paid advertising, which you often see on the right-hand side of the search results.
So then you could, if I've got that right, you could be a practice in, we'll say Newcastle for the sake of argument, and you could do something like accountancy services, but you'd only, through the paid advertising, you'd appear for what, just Newcastle, or how do you do the parameters? Yeah,
you can sort of specify your area. So Google obviously knows roughly where each computer is through their what they call the IP address. So you can put in that very generic search term that's getting a lot of searches every month, and we know that some of them will be coming from right down south, but some of them will be coming from Newcastle. And if you just wanted to focus on Newcastle, you could put Newcastle city centre postcode in there and a 30-mile radius or something like that, and it will only show that advert to the people who search from within that radius.
So we've got two choices really, haven't we? If we'll stick with the Newcastle example, we can just get people who are typing in accountants in Newcastle. There's nearly 4,000 of them. Or we can get people who are typing in accountants and need a new accountant and that sort of stuff just in that local area. So if you did the combination of those numbers, they're pretty high. And I imagine the competition's pretty high, and it seems quite complicated. So how do you go about doing it? How do you get yourself up in the rankings for those types of searches? Yeah,
well, obviously there's to actually show up on what we call the organic listings. That depends on the competition levels. It gets quite complicated. There's a lot involved in terms of the build of your website, the technical side of things on the website, as well as the keywords that you're selecting. You obviously got to choose the right keywords, which these are the keywords accountants in Newcastle. Those sort of words that people are typing in. You've got to choose the right keywords. You've got to build the website right, and then you've got to do a lot more outside of the website to draw traffic in for those keywords and gain your ranking. Or you go down the pay-per-click route, and now these clicks are costing around about, on these particular ones, between £1 and £1.50 per click. And every time someone clicks, they're actually going to your website. So as long as that website's converting and actually getting people to sign up, for an accountancy practice, if you can convert every 10 of those, I'm sure that's worth it.
So £15, one customer. Yeah, no, I think those maths work. Definitely. So we've got those two different options. It sounded very complicated what you're saying, Mary. I know you mentioned in the book that there's about 150 different ways that you get the organic rankings. I can't remember any of them. But there's different ways. What would your advice to accountants be? Is there stuff they can do themselves? Are they better using someone like yourself? What would an accountant do who's saying, okay, we've got a good website, we like what you're talking about, what's the next step, if you will?
Accountants are limited for time, so we would always sort of recommend using someone like ourselves or one of our services to get up there. It is very, very complicated, and there are a number of factors, like I say, around about 150, but it changes almost on a monthly basis. Google are always changing what they call the algorithm, which determines where people rank, and there's always things that they're sort of making blacklisted, if you like. So if you've gone and tried some different techniques which become blacklisted, you're just going to drop down the rankings. And obviously, say in particular accountants, they just don't have the time to mess around with that. So we obviously have a team that keep up with everything in terms of what's changing on the algorithm, and constantly work on a number of sites to get there at the top.
So what would you say, are people better off being trained by somebody such as yourself into the algorithms and all the rest of it? Or is there, the way that you could just take care of it for them? What would be the best solution?
we have done both, but someone who works in search engine optimization really needs to be full-time in search engine optimization. It's like I say, it changes almost on a monthly basis. There's so many different things to learn, so many different things to watch out for, pitfalls and things like that, that really, unless you were employing somebody to do that full-time in the practice, I would always say, you should outsource it.
And I know lots of accountants who have outsourced SEO and pay-per-click and these other activities, so sort of what you call the search marketing.
Yeah.
But their results aren't as good as they'd like them to be.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the medium? Is that what they're doing? What would your advice to those people be?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a number of different things.
Mm-hmm.
The keywords are obviously crucial. So if it was, for example, we just talked about pay-per-click here, keywords are very, very important. Depends what they've chosen in that term. For the terms, the actual advert, the wording of it and things like that. You know, some people just sort of buy the most generic keyword throughout We Are Accountants or the accountancy name or something like that. Again, listing bullet points of what they do. And it doesn't really convert, if you like. One of the main things, though, is probably the website. If it hasn't worked, I would, you know.
So the website isn't, like we talked about before, all of the stuff you need for a website.
Yeah,
it's not that essential.
That's right. It's not there. It's not converting. So you know, you pay every time someone clicks on it, but the website doesn't convert. So you're just burning money every time someone clicks on it, and that tends to be the main problem. There's a lot involved in pay-per-click again. You know, in terms of the keywords you use, the pages you send people to, all of that affects your ranking and how much it costs. But really, at the end of the day, if the website doesn't convert, it's pointless doing pay-per-click. And that's where a lot of people, not just accountants, a lot of businesses have sort of fallen down there, buying generic keywords, putting up a generic advert, and sending them to a homepage on a brochure website that didn't convert in the first place.
So it's really a false economy, isn't it? Yeah, you've got to do both, haven't you? You've got to do the search and the website.
That's it.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Paul.